the rate at which technology has been moving is amazing. And the government's ability to adopt its policies and procedures is somewhat lagging the pace at which technology is moving. But we have seen certain agencies that have taken the lead and do things which have helped to make them more efficient. For example, we are doing some records management and information lifecycle governance kind of work where they have been able to work with us very closely to come up with new ways in which unstructured information is managed. So, for example, 85 to 90% of all the information that we have and that we work with is unstructured. Think of it like your emails and documents, faxes that come in, contracts, and so on and so forth. And that part of the information is exploding. And as you may know, President Obama, passed a requirement that requires all government agencies to have a records management plan. I think that was sometime around March or April of last year. And a lot of agencies have been struggling as to see how do they do that with so much information. And we've worked with a couple of agencies like the State Department, for example, and the Air Force that have implemented technology to automatically classify documents, to figure out what the file plan needs to be, and adopt technologies, most of it from IBM that we have worked with, to automatically have some kind of a retention plan and so on and so forth. That's one way in which you save money and you adopt technology, to meet changing requirements, and also essentially pull yourself out of a tremendous avalanche of information. That's one example. Data center consolidation is another area where a lot of the emphasis has been on saving real estate, saving energy, and so on. But one of the things that's happening is that, let's say I sent you a PowerPoint presentation and you send it to 10 other people. All of a sudden, you have 11 copies of that within the organization, which means you are using 11 times the storage that you need for that one piece of information. So we have used technology from IBM and from others that allows us to go in and very quickly figure out, what you need, what you can get rid of, what are duplicates, and sometimes you may get one of those PowerPoint presentations back with annotations on it. And the software that we have allows us to figure out if there is such annotation on it and needs to be retained. So there's a classic example where the government can actually save money because they can save storage cost by a phenomenal amount by just going through the deduplication process. And in the process also adopt records management disciplines that allow you to get into that information when you need it. Figure out ways in which you can adopt your processes and policies to make use of these technologies. So we heard a lot about big data as an example. Let me give you another example of how that is being used by us in certain applications. We are working for a group of public hospitals in Florida, about 8 or 10 of them. And they suspected some amount of fraud and abuse within their entities. And so we used I2 from IBM, and we tapped into 800 databases across the country, state and local governments, bankruptcy records, divorce filings, and so on and so forth, to connect the dots between vendors so we can establish relationships and we could almost predict where there's potential fraud or abuse. So for example, if there are the same 4 bidders bidding on a project, on the surface they look like 4 independent companies, but when you start using this technology, you very quickly find out that there's joint ownership, there are common boards of directors, and so on and so forth, which leads you to believe that there is a higher risk of collusion, as an example. At these hospitals, we were able to uncover about $10 million worth of fraud that was going on through this kind of relationships and vendor collusion. Another great example of how we have leveraged technology for big data is that in a particular instance, one of the contractors, a small contractor in a children's hospital, we found out was actually a convicted pedophile in another state, but had changed his name and relocated to Florida. I mean, that's like giving the keys, to the fox, to the hen house, if you will. So, that was a huge liability about to happen for the hospital. So, there's a situation where, in terms of procurement, in terms of being nimble, to be able to know who your vendor is, or get an insight into your vendor community, be able to predictably stop fraud and abuse, is one way in which government can use technology. The next big thing is managing unstructured information. It has been around for some time. However, companies have been slow to adopt. So, bringing all these technologies together to a mobile workforce is the next big thing. I mean, clearly, there are more people today using their cell phones and their iPads or other mobile devices to access their corporate data, whether it's emails or even documents, than there are laptops and desktop computers. And clearly, the mobile workforce, remote access, is going to be on the increase. And how do you sort of architect that information, infrastructure in a secure way? What happens if you lose your iPad, or if you lose your mobile device? How do you wipe that information? So security is going to be a big deal. Mobility is going to be a big deal. And most of us are already using the cloud and probably don't even know it or don't even acknowledge it. Companies like Salesforce and Amazon and buying, our consumer behavior has changed a lot. Okay, so a lot of that technology is becoming second nature to us, and it has only been we have been a little slow in adopting it for better governance, better government. Okay, an agile government, if you will. And I think that's the next big thing in the immediate future. I see that in the next 3 to 5 years, that's going to be a major game changer. They call it a $1 trillion tsunami that many people are, they know it's coming, but are not prepared for it entirely. We have more computing power on our cell phones now, smartphones now, than we did even 20 years ago on a desktop computer. So, and there's so much data out there. So cloud computing, mobile computing, big data, intelligent search, these are some of the big technologies that are going to bring efficiency to us. Secure payments, web-based payments. And the interesting thing is that if you look a little bit beyond that, okay, so far most of our interaction with our intelligent devices have been through some kind of a tactile keyboard. But voice recognition is going to be big. Siri, for example, has made a big difference in how you can make hands-free telephone calls right now. You very rarely have a live person answering your queries when you call 411 or 611 at Verizon. It's usually a robot that's answering your machine, answering your questions. And some of that technology will start making its way into voice-based computing. And there are other similar technologies that are out there, action-based, or what you call like what we see in Connect. That kind of technology will also make its way into the office environment. So looking a little bit further than 3 to 5 years, besides the keyboard, we will see other ways in which we interact with how we get information and how we work with information. So it's an exciting space. I'm very excited about what we see on the horizon, and its implication to business processes and business process automation. It's going to be huge.